There are 10,000 ways to die in the 31st millennium, but only one way to be remembered, by doing what no one else dares. The name they gave me was irrelevant long before Isstvan. I was once a warrior of the Luna Wolves, a son of the 16th Legion, proud, disciplined, forged in the image of our Primarch. Then came the black betrayal. We were told to stand beside our brothers. We were told to trust them, and they burned us alive. I crawled from the ash wastes of that betrayal, half dead and entirely faithless. The Emperor's truth had become a whisper, and the galaxy bled. That's when they found me. The Officio Assassinorum. The Vindicare Temple took in the shattered pieces of my mind and reforged them into something cold and useful. They gave me one mission, spoken in a voice like an executioner's bell. Kill Lupercal. If you crave more tales from the Dark Millennium, stay with me. The Emperor protects those who listen, and perhaps those who subscribe. I landed on the ruins of Istvan V again, this time not as prey, but as a ghost. The world was quiet, its black sands fused into glass by orbital fire. The air shimmered with residual radiation and the stink of promethium. My auspex flickered with interference, lingering warp echoes, perhaps, or the laughter of demons. Even the wind seemed haunted, carrying whispers in the voices of my fallen legion. I moved like a phantom among the dead, armor stripped down to matte gray, my long rifle cradled against my chest. I made my way through the graveyard of Astartes, tens of thousands of them, loyal and traitor alike, their armor cracked open like eggshells. I had to step carefully. Some of the corpses still twitched with the last embers of life sustained by malfunctioning power cores. Competence was survival here. I killed my Voxlink immediately. No contact, no trace. I recalibrated my scope manually, compensating for the residual magnetic distortion that Istvan's atmosphere created after the orbital bombardment. Each adjustment was precise, measured. Even in the heart of horror, ritual and discipline kept insanity at bay. Somewhere out there, beyond this desolation, Horus Lupercal, once the Warmaster, now the arch-traitor, waged his war across the stars. My orders were impossible. To infiltrate his forces, get close enough, and end him. Even the notion was heresy, but so was surviving Isstvan. Still, I had something Horus did not, the clarity of purpose that comes from utter damnation. As I moved through the ruins of what had once been a fortress, I found remnants of a shattered banner, the eye of Horus daubed in blood over the old sigil of the Luna Wolves. I traced the mark with gloved fingers, feeling the raised texture of dried gore. It was a desecration and a proclamation. Lupercal lives. Night fell quickly on Isstvan. The light here had a strange hue. The sun bled through particulate clouds, turning everything a sickly bronze. The ground itself seemed to breathe. My auto-senses registered faint heat signatures below the surface, sub-level tunnels where survivors might still hide, loyal or traitor. That was where I'd begin. I descended through a fissure in the ground, laser pistol drone, rifle slung. The tunnels were carved from blackened ferroconcrete, slick with condensation and oil. Every few meters, the symbols of chaos had been etched into the walls. 8 pointed stars, runes written in blood that still hadn't dried. The smell was enough to gag a mortal man, but I'd long since abandoned mortality. Something moved ahead, slow, scraping sounds. I brought my rifle up, steady breath, one finger on the trigger. The shape emerged from the dark, a half-burned Astartes, loyalist markings obscured by soot, helm shattered, eyes glowing faintly with lingering bionics. He was muttering to himself, words half prayer, half delirium. "Brother," I whispered. He looked up, recognizing the old Legion markings on my armor. "Luna Wolves, we were betrayed." "I know." He reached toward me, trembling. You still fight?" I didn't answer. I simply lowered my weapon and gave him the Emperor's mercy. The laze round punched clean through his skull, and the tunnel fell silent again. I recorded the coordinates, marked the spot for later extraction of his gene seed, if anyone still cared enough to come. Then I continued deeper. There, in the lowest reaches of the dead moon, I found what I'd come for. A fragment of transmission encoded in the old Legion cipher. It repeated endlessly through the static. The Warmaster returns to the Eye. The Lupercal ascends. That was all I needed. The mission had truly begun. The Emperor's light flickers, but it still burns, and as I rose from that darkness, the only thought left in my mind was not faith nor fear, only purpose. Kill Lupercal.
The dead were everywhere, and some of them whispered back. I had crossed the first threshold, deep into the catacombs beneath Isstvan's killing fields, following that broken transmission like a lifeline. It led me through echoing holes of burnt steel and melted armor, where once legions of the Emperor's finest had made their final stand. Everywhere I looked, loyalty and treachery lay entombed side by side. The black ceramite of Iron Hands, the crimson of Salamanders, the emerald of the sons of Horus, all fused together in the same funereal sprawl. The distinction between friend and foe had been obliterated by the orbital fire that had scoured the world. Still, some of them moved. I first noticed it when my auspex picked up faint motion, human scale, erratic, close. I knelt, breath steady, rifle sighted. The flickering light revealed a figure dragging itself from beneath the corpses, an Astartes, or what had once been one. The armor was a patchwork of Luna Wolf white and Sons of Horus green, torn down the middle as though two identities warred within the same body. "Identify," I ordered. The voice that answered was wrong, doubled, out of sync, like two throats speaking through the same shuttered vox brill. "Brother, assassin, you should not be here." My finger tightened on the trigger. "Nor should you." The Astartes lifted his helm. Inside was a face half fused with ceramite, veins pulsing with oily black ichor. Warp corruption. I had seen it before during the first whispers of Horus's rebellion, the moment when loyalty became sickness. He lunged. My shot took him through the chest.
The blast from my long rifle slammed him against the wall, but he didn't fall. He screamed, and the sound wasn't human. Shadows rippled from his mouth like smoke, forming the faint outline of a coiling serpent before dissipating. For a second, the air itself trembled, and I heard words that weren't mine. "You cannot kill what has already ascended." Then silence. I knelt over his corpse and scanned the armor. The runes carved along the inside plates weren't imperial. They were sigils of the warp, used for psychic reinforcement or possession. He'd been marked by something that wasn't Horus, but served him nonetheless. Competence took over. I burned the body, collected the gene seed, catalogued the corruption signs. Every detail mattered. The Assassinorum would need data if I failed. I would not leave behind mystery, only proof. Hours passed. The deeper I went, the more unstable the tunnels became. Power conduits flickered sporadically. Some still carried current from forgotten generators. Each pulse illuminated murals scorched onto the ferrocrete. Astartes kneeling before a towering armored figure haloed in fire. The inscriptions beneath read, "The Lupercal is our salvation." I began to understand. Isstvan wasn't just a graveyard, it was a shrine. Still with us in the darkness? Hit that like button if this tale chills your soul. The Emperor watches even here, among the ashes. By the time I reached the lowest vault, I was no longer alone. Footsteps echoed behind me, deliberate, armored, synchronized. I extinguished my lumen and faded into the shadows. 3 figures advanced, their armor bearing the same torn motif, white and green, Luna Wolf and Sons of Horus in one. They moved like soldiers, but their eyes, those dull glowing embers, betrayed the truth. Puppets. I let the first pass before sliding from the darkness and executing the second with a perfect shot through the neck joint. The third turned, roaring, his bolter spitting shells that chewed the walls into molten slag. I rolled aside, uncloaked, and fired twice. One round through his helm, one through the chest. Both hits clean. The last one, the leader, charged with a chain blade shrieking in his hand. He was faster, enhanced perhaps, even warped. My rifle was too slow. I dropped it, drew my executioner's dagger, and sidestepped his swing. The blade caught the edge of my pauldron, carving deep. Pain flared. I reversed my grip and drove the dagger into the soft joint beneath his gorget, twisting until the whine of his reactor died to silence. When it was over, the tunnel floor ran with coolant and black blood. My breath fogged inside my helm, heart pounding steady, measured, calm. Competence wasn't courage. It was all that kept the fear away. Then I heard the vox static again, the same coded whisper, stronger now, layered beneath the hum of the warp. The Warmaster returns to the eye, the Lupercal ascends, the serpent coils within its shell. I realized the truth then. This signal wasn't coming from Isstvan. It was being channeled through it. A beacon, not a message. Somewhere out there, in the deep void near the Eye of Terror, Horus Lupercal was gathering power. The galaxy believed him dead, but his name still pulsed like a heartbeat through the warp. I ascended from the catacombs at dawn, the light dim and poisoned by ash storms. The ship that would take me off-world waited hidden among the wreckage, an Assassinorum stealth craft, cloaked and silent. I took one last look at the blackened landscape that had birthed both my legion and my hatred. Isstvan, the world that killed the Emperor's sons. As the ship rose into orbit, the planet's horizon burned like a scar across the void. I swore I could still see figures moving below. Not men, not Astartes, but something older, stirring beneath the glass plains. Something that laughed when I whispered my mission. Kill Lupercal. In the black between stars, even faith decays. Warp travel has a way of stripping a man down to what he truly is. Out there, with the Gellerfield's hum gnawing against the walls and the void pressing in like a living thing, you can hear your thoughts too clearly. Some of them aren't your own. The ship they gave me, a stolen traitor cover retrofitted by the Assassinorum, ran silent, its machine spirit muzzled under coded prayer locks. It was small enough to pass unnoticed in the debris fields that orbit the Eye of Terror. That was where my course was set now. The last transmission had been clear in its madness. The Lupercal ascends. If the Warmaster lived, or something wearing his face did, he would be within the Eye, the galaxy's wound where reality bled into nightmare. I spent the first day of the voyage calibrating my gear. My long rifle's focusing lens had microfractures from the Isstvan sandstorms. I replaced it, adjusted the power cell, checked the charge regulator. Routine, ritual, sanity. Each motion deliberate, a reminder that skill was the only shield against fear. At night, when the ship drifted through warp tides, I prayed. Not to the Emperor. Not anymore. I prayed to the memory of what we were before Horus fell, before the Luna Wolves became his slaves. That's when the whispers began. At first, they were faint, murmurs bleeding through the ship's vox array, too low to isolate. But then they began to shape into words, layered with static, each syllable scraping the back of my skull. Brother, why hunt what cannot die? I froze. The voice was familiar, commanding, charismatic. It was him. I shut down the Vox immediately, purged the channel, and sealed my helm. But the voice didn't stop. It echoed from the hull, from the air, from within. You were my son once, my Luna Wolf. The Gellerfield shuddered, just slightly, but enough to make every lumen flicker. I drew my pistol and circled the cabin. My training said this was a hallucination, a psychic projection, but my heart said otherwise. You want to kill me? Then understand me. There was a shimmer ahead, and for an instant I saw him, Horus Lupercal, standing at the far end of the cabin, as real as the metal under my boots. His armor gleamed gold and black, his eyes burning like twin suns swallowed by shadow. I fired. The bolt round passed through him, striking the bulkhead and detonating with a muttered thud. When the smoke cleared, he was gone. Only the scent of ozone remained. I spent the rest of the voyage awake. When I emerged into real space, the void was crimson. The Eye of Terror filled half the viewport, a wound of swirling fire and screaming stars. The ship's machine spirit whimpered as I forced it forward, closer to the storm. The coordinates embedded in the heretic signal led me to a derelict cruiser drifting near the edge of the eye. Ancient, massive, its hull cracked and alive with faint warp glow. Vengeance Spirit. The name still glared across its side in flaking letters. Horus's flagship. According to the histories, it had vanished after the siege of Terra. But here it was, anchored in the liminal tides, half ghost, half ship. I engaged mag seals and boarded. Inside, silence. The corridors were dark, their walls pulsating faintly as though the metal itself breathed. Vox chatter whispered through unseen ducts, not words, just sounds of distant marching, chains dragging, heartbeats in unison. My auto-senses flickered with false returns. Every scan painted new shapes, figures standing still in the dark, vanishing when I turned. I pushed deeper. Past the bridge decks, past the shrines to the Warmaster, I found a hall lined with broken statues, the Primarchs rendered in marble. Some were shattered, others defaced with crude runes. Only Horus's remained untouched, its eyes inlaid with black crystal. That's when I saw it. A shadow moving across the far wall, tall, armored, heavy-footed. I took cover behind a fallen archway and readied the rifle. My augurs caught a biosignature, transhuman, Astartes grade, massive, but its heart rate was wrong, too slow. Then came the voice. Low, guttural, echoing through the hull like thunder through stone. You are far from your masters, little assassin. I stepped out from cover. Show yourself. The figure emerged from the dark, not Horus, but a remnant of him. His armor bore the eye of Horus, corroded and blackened by centuries. The aims of the face within were half skull, half machine. I served the Warmaster. I still do. His will endures. What is he? I asked. The thing tilted its head. Not a man, not a god. He is the echo between the stars. The Lupercal never died. He simply shed the flesh that betrayed him. I fired. The bolt round punctured through his chest, scattering molten ceramic. He stumbled but didn't fall. Instead, he began to dissolve, the armor liquefying into a pool of shadow that slithered toward the bulkhead and vanished. Only then did I realize the truth. The entire ship was alive with that same corruption. The vengeance spirit wasn't a relic, it was a host. And somewhere in its heart, the Lupercal's essence lingered, waiting for the right vessel. I sealed the chamber and recorded a single line in my mission log. Objective remains unchanged. Lupercal must be ended, whatever form he wears. As I advanced toward the central sanctum, the ship's whisper followed me, its voice rising from every vent and shadow. Come, son of mine, the serpent waits. The Emperor's light felt so far away. The sanctum was a cathedral of rot. I stepped through the final bulkhead and into what had once been the bridge of the vengeful spirit. Once it had commanded fleets, issued death to worlds. Now it was a throne room fashioned from flesh and shadow. The walls pulsed, veins of molten brass snaked through the deck. Vox relays whispered prayers that weren't prayers. and at the center, upon a cracked dais of fused adamantium and bone, was the thing that had once been Horus Lupercal. Not the Warmaster, not the demigod of the Great Crusade. What sat upon that throne was something vast and incomplete. A storm of armor fragments, spectral limbs, and psychic malice. The shape of a Primarch made from grief and warp light. The first thought that struck me wasn't fear. It was awe. Even broken, he was magnificent. I hid behind a collapsed console, running the numbers in my head: range, angle, line of sight. My rifle's round was blessed with an anathema core, null encoded, designed to shatter psychic coherence. It could kill a Daemon Prince, perhaps even a Primarch, if the shot found the mind. One chance. But before I could take it, his voice filled the chamber. "You came all this way to see me, little wolf." The sound bypassed my helm entirely, drilling straight into my skull. "You wear the mark of my sons, yet you serve him. Why?" I kept my breathing steady. "Because you betrayed us." Laughter, vast and hollow, shook the air. "Betrayed? I freed you. The Emperor made you slaves to his dream. I gave you purpose." "You gave us graves," I said, standing. The air rippled. His eyes, twin orbs of warp fire, locked onto me. "Ah, Assassinorum, Vindicare pattern, efficient, predictable. I'm here to end what should have stayed dead." "Then shoot," he whispered. The room fell silent. Even the warp wind paused. I sighted down the rifle. Every muscle remembered its ritual. Inhale, exhale, half trigger pull. And then I saw him, not as a figure of armor and darkness, but as a man. In that instant, the warp peeled back, revealing fragments of the past. The Luna Wolves at parade rest, the Warmaster laughing among us, hand on our shoulders, pride in his eyes. The shot wavered. "Do you remember Chthoniya? The tunnels, the gangs, the blood? I remember you, my son. You fought like a beast. I lifted you from the mud. And this is how you repay me?" I clenched my jaw. "You stopped being my father the day you turned from the throne." I fired. The bullet struck true, center mass. For a heartbeat, the psychic field around him flared and shattered like glass. The warp screamed. The specter staggered, his chest erupting in blinding light. Then the light became laughter. "Did you think it would be that simple?" The wound closed, knitting itself with tendrils of shadow. My rifle overheated and died in my hands, its machine spirit howling. He rose from the throne, towering, immense. "The Emperor's tools never learn. You can kill the man, but not the idea." The floor split, reality bent, the warp poured through the cracks, spilling demonic shapes that twisted and melted upon emergence. I drew my pistol and fired again and again, moving between cover, praying the Geller field of my suit held. Horus advanced, each step cracking the deck plates. The warp around him shimmered with faces, my brothers, my Primarch sons, each one pleading, burning, falling. I dove toward the central relay, a massive crystalline core humming with warp energy. If this ship was a shrine, this was its heart. I set my last charge there, a shaped fusion device encoding with null sigils. "Even if I die, you die with me."
You die for nothing. He swung. The impact of his shadowed fist sent me flying, armor cracking. Pain like lightning surged through my chest. I felt ribs snap, blood fill my lungs. Still, I laughed. That's what makes it noble. The charge detonated. The explosion tore through the sanctum like divine fire. The walls screamed, literally screamed, as the warp structure collapsed inward. Horus's form disintegrated, unraveling into a vortex of howling light. For a second, his voice drowned the universe. You cannot kill the Lupercal. I am the war itself. Then, silence. I was thrown clear, slammed against the far wall, vision fading. The ship groaned, its orbit decaying. I could hear the void breaching, atmosphere hissing through ruptured hull. With the last of my strength, I activated the emergency beacon embedded in my gauntlet. Maybe the Assassinorum would find it, maybe not. In through the shattered viewport, the eye of terror burned, crimson and infinite. And somewhere within that storm, I swore I saw his silhouette reforming, faint and distant, like a reflection in blood. The mission was not yet done. Kill Lupercal. Again. The tension builds. Subscribe to witness more tales from the dark Millennium. The void was cold. Not the absence of heat kind of cold, but the sort that steals meaning. The kind that reminds you there's no difference between silence and death. I drifted through it, half conscious, half dreaming. My armor's power reserves had failed. Oxygen cycling dropped to minimum. The stars spun slowly, reflecting off cracked lenses. But the beacon still pulsed, one dying heartbeat at a time. I thought it was the end. Then something moved across the black. A shape, vast, angular, crawling with light. A ship. Retrieval successful, whispered a mechanical voice. When I woke again, I was back among the living, or something close to it. The chamber smelled of incense and oil. A silhouette leaned over me. Servo skulls orbiting, robes inscribed with catechisms of concealment. An inquisitor, or worse, a magos biologicus from the Officio Assassinorum. You completed the mission, he said. Horus's echo is silenced. For now. For now, I rasped. You understand, he continued. The Warmaster cannot truly die. He exists as a wound in the warp. Every century something wears his face. I stared up at the Medici lights. Then I'll kill him again. The Magos tilted his head, vox grill crackling. Such persistence is admirable, but we may require something stronger than human will next time. He gestured toward a containment cell. Behind its wards floated the remains of my bullet, the null round that had pierced Horus. The casing was cracked open, leaking faint threads of light like captured souls. It absorbed something, a resonance, perhaps a fragment of what made him Lupercal. I felt the hum of it in my bones, faint, hungry. He leaned closer. Tell me, assassin, when you looked into his eyes, what did you see? I remembered the vision, the moments before the shot, when the warp fell silent, and I'd seen not a monster, but a man, a father. Regret, I whispered, and conviction. The Magos seemed almost satisfied. Then we will make use of both.
Weeks later, the training vaults beneath Terra were silent except for the hum of gravitation engines and the rasp of my breath. My wounds had healed, my spirit had not. They gave me a new code name, Lupercalis. Irony or prophecy, I couldn't tell. My mission, to hunt the Warmaster's echoes wherever they manifested, across time, across realities. They rebuilt my rifle, but this one was different. The core contained the resonance fragment, bound in stasis. Each round would carry part of Horus's essence back toward the warp. In the darkness between stars, I would become his shadow, the mirror that followed the sin. And sometimes, when the engines were quiet, I still heard his voice. "You can't kill me, son. You only keep me company." I would check the rifle's calibration, whispering the same prayer every time. "Emperor, guide the hand that strikes the fallen." Somewhere beyond the veil, the Lupercal laughed. But the next time he rose, I would be waiting, because I had learned the oldest truth of the galaxy. Evil never dies. It only waits for you to stop believing it can. So I never would. Not until the stars burned out and even the gods forgot their names. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is no redemption, only the next mission.